Good evening, race fans. Welcome back to TRTN and welcome to the NLRL Sunday League here for round 3 of the championship. We join at the moment James Mason on his way down the opening straight here at the fantastic Mount Panorama Circuit. Established in 1938 in Bathurst, New South Wales, Australia, and consisting of 3.8 miles and 23 turns of FIA Grade 3, it is among the most iconic circuits in the history of Australian motorsports. And in the third round of the championship is looking to be the set piece for a rather interesting turn of possible events. Here as we get towards the third way point of this championship, just under I would say. I of course am Regan Clark, and we're staying on board here with James Mason as we get swiftly on to the discussion of what is an incredibly tight championship standings here heading into round 3. Of course, after the action in Donington saw Wesley Kuiper gain his first win of the season. That now makes 2 different winners in 2 consecutive races. It's looking on for a very good track here coming into round 3 of the championship. Still on board here with Mason. We wanted to discuss then the championship standings coming into round 3 of the championship, with Jason Bush leading with 78 points. Diman Ivanov with 70 makes second place. James Mason, who's on screen, is joint third in the championship with 66 points, same as Christian Lebay, last season's champion. Francois Debon's only a point away from the pair of them, making 5th in the championship with 65 points. Axel Cassier and Kevin Quain are joint 6th in the championship with 60 points between the pair of them. Wesley Kuiper finds himself joint 8th in the championship, 58 points, alongside Hayden Prodger. Also with 58 points, rounding out that top 10 then, is Marian Stoyanov with 56 points. Of course, we saw a very good race out of the Aston Martin last weekend at Donington Park. We stay on board then with James Mason. Let's get a comprehensive rundown of the Mount Panorama circuit here as we go barreling down towards turn 1 at the Hell Corner. Mount Panorama is a circuit that brings with it great challenge and great complexity despite its diminutive size, and heading out of turn 1 immediately brings us to the first of 2 major straights. The mountain straight then is 1.1 kilometers long, takes us up all the way uphill to Griffin's Bend at turn 2, which is one of our first major attacking spots for most drivers. A long run down towards turn 2, a wide enough entry, tightens at the apex and then opens back out on the run up towards the cutting at turns 3 and 4. This is where things start to get very complex. These corners are going to start coming at our drivers thick and fast here. Turn 3 becomes turn 4 immediately at the cutting. Into turn 5 we go almost instantly there at the start of the first part of the Quarry Corner. Turn 5 becomes turn 6, then turn 7 on the exit of Quarry into Reed Park. Turn 8, then into Frog Hollow at turn 9, then to Solomon Park. And the Wall of Death on our right hand side, narrowly avoided by James Mason. Now to McPhillamy Park at turn 10, immediately into Brock Skyline at turn 11. This whole complex turn 11 through turn 12, into turn 13 at the S's. Then turn 14 and 15 at the Dipper. Then turn 16, turn 17, then to turn 18 at Forest's Elbow. That's how quickly this whole section of the track flies past these drivers there. Almost too quick to think. Out of turn 19 then, and we're approaching what is the fastest corner in touring car history. That being the first part of the 3-corner complex of the Chase. Here after the Conrod Straight, 1.9 kilometre run here of FIA Grade 3 tarmac brings us here to the fastest corner in touring car history, turn 20 at the Chase. Then into another major attacking spot here, heavy braking zone into the chicane at turn 21 and 22. Now down to Murray's Corner at 23, bringing about the end of our first lap here of free practice. 5.5 minutes left to go. That was our first time in by James Mason. A 2:03.705 will be able to get on to qualifying predictions later down the line. We'll be waiting to see then our next time down towards the line. Somewhere down the track, making their way up down the Conrod Straight right now, is Hayden Prodger in the 222. We saw that Prodger's gamble in choosing to go away from Nissan and towards Ferrari over the course of round 1 into round 2 paid off, courtesy of giving him his first podium of the season with Ferrari in what was a very decisive fight up to third. A very, very well done drive by Prodger. Can he keep the ball rolling then, running into round 3? By no stretch of the imagination is this an easy track to conquer. However, having watched Bathurst over the course of the last couple of months in sprint races, Ferrari is the most favourable manufacturer coming into this round. We saw such talent out of Tyler Vermack in the VSR Phoenix Season 7 Championship, where he managed to win in Bathurst, and that was a very decisive victory for the South African. He'll also be competing in this championship, but competing with Ford coming into this round. You can see him just emerging round turn 1 here as we stay on with Hayden Prodger. They do a 2:02 0.897 in that last lap. Looking around the field then as to who has taken our fastest time of the session with a 2:02.147 is Tyler Vermaak, who we just mentioned there, has already claimed a victory here in Bathurst, but did so in a Ferrari 296. So on his move over to Ford, can he replicate the same kind of magic we had in VSR here in the NLRL Sunday League? That is the question on his mind heading into this round. We'll be getting on to quali predictions in a few minutes' time, but let's start off by discussing the balance of performance coming into this round. And Ford are on the back foot coming into round 3 of the championship. 20 kilos added to the Ford Mustang across the board is going to make things a little bit difficult for the Blue Oval to recapture some of the magic they had last season in the hands of drivers like Martijn van Manen in Indianapolis. McLaren gained 18 kilos, Aston Martin gaining 2, then into the negatives, Mercedes losing 3, BMW losing 7, so too does Honda with their NSX, Porsche losing 11 kilos, Lexus losing 12, Ferrari losing 16 kilos in its 296 is definitely going to put quite the spring in the step of drivers like Hayden Proger. And then, last but not least, the V12 Vantage loses a whopping 40 kilos. That is really going to put quite the grin on the face of Christian Lebay, the sole star of the Aston Martin V12 Vantage lineup. The 119, of course, is out on track at the moment. We'll be able to get on board with them on their way out. I say that, I have to correct myself. He is just making his way to pit lane at the moment. He's yet to actually appear on the track. We'll be seeing times out of him, hopefully, coming into qualifying here. We're on with Vermaak, down towards the line. He was relegated down to second. That makes third now after the most recent run of times. Hayden Proger going up to second. What can Vermaak do to fight this back across the line at 2 minutes, 0.575? So early doors enthusiasm by Vermaak. Do keep a very close eye on his progress coming into this round. This is a track he knows like the back of his hand. He knows the ins and outs of the track, but does he know the ins and outs of his machine? We saw a few sort of stability concerns back in Donington last weekend. Can Vermaak recapture the control and measured ability that he had once with Ferrari, now that he is racing with Ford? Definitely a gamble. Speaking of Fords, this is Francois de Bont, high up in the championship at the moment, 5th in the championship. In the number 4, had a very promising look of last race. Still hunting down a podium finish. De Bont definitely has the makings of podium material. I'd even argue that De Bont has the makings of a potential race winner on our hands. There is real enthusiasm in the Belgian's drive over the last 2 rounds. Coming into this one, he has not lost any steam despite the issues he's had with that Ford. He shared in a fantastic battle in Donington, had a few issues in Spa. Nonetheless, though, it's done very little to deter his constant strive for improvement. It's not hard to see where that comes from with Francois de Bont. Seems like one of those drivers that you can kick down oh so many times, but he'll just keep getting back up and he'll come up swinging. Speaking of Fords as well, Axel Cassier has got a lot of promise coming into this leg of the championship. We're just under a third into this championship. Getting a look at our calendar as well, we've got plenty on the horizon to keep our drivers on their toes. After this, we're going to Kyalami in South Africa, and then to round out the first half of the championship, we'll be finishing things off in Texas to round out that first half. Then we're into France for round 6, Imola for round 7 in Italy, Silverstone, we go back to the United Kingdom for round 8, back to the United States for round 9, then rounding things off in Monza for the finale round of Season 2. So plenty on the horizon. This is only the tip of the iceberg here, and it's quite the tip of an iceberg to have. Bathurst is one of the most challenging tracks in circulation on ACC. I'd say second only to tracks like the Nürburgring Nordschleife. Many have described this as a sort of mishmash, one half Nordschleife, the other half Macau in some descriptions of Bathurst, and I'd say that's pretty apt. It shares in the complexity and grandeur that both tracks bring to the table. As we get towards the end of free practice, we'll be shortly on to the discussion of our qualifying predictions for today, and it's looking interesting for quite a few names on that list. You see a fairly quiet state of affairs. You can see a handful there of the Malwar racing cars there. John Prine and Kevin Quain, the 706 and the 22. Aston Martin there alongside Dave Bond and Latchlock Richard, and the number 19, and Mike Wade there just at the front of our shot of the pit lane. There's Wesley Kuiper, took second in free practice. Tyler Vermaak is looking remarkably strong coming into this round. We can see now just joining before we get on to qualifying.
Green light, give it all you can.
It's already a lively start then, as we see drivers immediately start firing up. We're going to try and get on board with the car leading the fray, and it's the 413 again, so James Mason, the early bird, gets the worm as he starts qualifying with a decent gap there to Jason Bush and Christian LeBay, leaving the pit lane now as well. Mike Wade joining them to make the fourth car onto the field. So, as we stay on board with the number 413 BMW, let's get on to the discussion of our qualifying predictions coming into this round. And while our data may be somewhat out of date, so we've been told that there are times even faster than the ones we're seeing here. Tyler Vermaak contacted us about a time potentially in the range of a 2 minutes point 2 by himself, and that's not hard to see. It was a very fast time being set by the South African over the course of practice. I definitely say the proof's in the pudding that he can make a time up like that, but at the moment our data that was took at around 2:32 today shows Wesley Kuiper predicted for pole position, a 2 minutes point 467. That's by only about 100th of a second there. As a matter of fact, that's about 5,000ths of a second between himself and Melvin Milliston in the BMW. Jason Bush predicted at third with Lexus, and then just behind him there by just over a tenth of a second is Christian LeBay in the Aston Martin. It was looking remarkably quick for the Canadian. Having a look at some of those times on Simbot's own analytics, that is the fastest time ever set by an Aston Martin V12 Vantage on pit bop. That is insanely fast. We are talking record-shattering performance now in the second season of the Sunday League. It's looking very, very promising coming into this round then. Behind LeBay is Vermaak, though we have seen potential rumours circulating that Vermaak can do a time in the range of a 2 minutes point 2, which would put him miles ahead of Kuiper and Milliston, though only time will tell if that does come to fruition. Behind him is Axel Cassier, predicted at 6th with a 201.235. Hayden Prodger predicted at 7th. James Mason on screen at the moment is predicted for 8th as he starts his first flying lap. We'll stay on board with Mason as he becomes the benchmark here for round 3's qualifying runs. Kevin Quain predicted at 9th with a 201.972, and Diman Ivanov predicted in the top 10 there at the back of the top 10 with a 202.002. So plenty to discuss in regards to that. It's definitely a much more varied top 10 than I would have expected coming into this round, but I think Bathurst is one of those magical tracks that can just produce this unique brand of eccentricity and chaos. I think that's exactly what we're in for here. It'll be an hour-long race ahead of us. Just like the last 2 rounds here, we're stuck on that hour structure. No mandated pit stops, completely open-ended strategy, and I think the drivers will need every option they can get here, because this is a track that takes indiscriminately the drives away from what could be very promising race winners. It is a brutal and unforgiving stretch of tarmac. Stay on board then with Mason. And we'll quickly recount our news then from the world of motorsports. Of course, most recently was the news out of Formula 1, that of course being Oscar Piastri winning the Chinese Grand Prix, with Lewis Hamilton winning the sprint race in the day prior. And speaking of Lewis Hamilton, both him and teammate Charles Leclerc, as well as Pierre Gasly, have been disqualified from the Chinese Grand Prix. Gasly and Leclerc on weight concerns, their cars being underweight, Hamilton with excessive skid plate damage. And then over to the world of the WRC for the last of our news, with Elfyn Evans and Scott Martin winning Safari Rally Kenya with Toyota Gazoo Racing. The Brit continuing to extend his championship lead. So watching with Mason then, we're down to the chase on what looks to be a very strong opening lap. You can see Jason Bush isn't leaving much up to chance. He is slowly gaining on the BMW, already in that hard push stint with Lexus. So we'll pull up our timing charts to the left-hand side here. Your first running order is James Mason and Jason Bush, then Christian LeBay, then what looks to be Wesley Kuiper, though I could be mistaken, he could still be on an outlap. So across the line goes James Mason. Jason Bush is next to the line and goes fastest. Then Christian LeBay's up next with Aston Martin and goes nearly a second off Bush's time, puts him provisional 3rd place. The 111 is next to the line. It's Wesley Kuiper across the line next. Is it on a flying lap? Yes, it is. At 2 minutes point 505 for the Dutchman. Puts him on provisional pole. Axel Cassier crosses the line with an error in his lap. He was 3 seconds down. Tyler Vermaak goes second fastest by 0.2 of a second with Ford as he crosses the line on his first flying laps. That is already a great start to see. Diman Ivanov crossing the line for 4th fastest there, puts himself ahead of Mason and LeBay. So looking very promising already, and we're far from done. The 26 is next up to the line at the moment. If we can just catch them, it's Carmelo Abate, 8th fastest, 4.7 seconds off, so there had to have been some kind of trouble for the Italian over the course of his last lap there. Then going across the line next, Francois Dubon, in the number 4 Ford Mustang. 0.4 of a second off pole position, but it's a 4.23 at the moment for Vermaak and de Bont. The 44 across the line next. That was Scott Milbank, 5.2 seconds off, so there had to have been also an issue in his last lap there. The 169 is next towards the line. It's Mike Wade in the McLaren. Quickly get on board then with Wade on his way through turn 23. Behind him there is Hayden Prodger. Wade across the line, 8th fastest. Then to Prodger, if we can catch him there, also 8th fastest, so push his way down a position. We just caught there, Charlie Smith ran into some trouble towards the end of his last gone lap. The number 22 next across the line, and that's John Prine, 11th fastest with Aston Martin. The 33 is next up, it's Jason Bush with Lexus. What can the American do? He's already gone back-to-back on podiums. Is he hunting down his first pole position? He's got to find 0.8 of a second in that number 33 to make it possible. Getting across the line, doesn't find the position in this lap. You can see he's only 100th of a second away from Francois de Bont in 3rd. So absolutely eyeing up a front of that second row start by the end of this session. But how much further can he elevate it? Beyond that, he's halved his time to pole position. But it's still a long, long way to go before the end of this qualifying. Christian Lebay, having most recently crossed the line as well, is still in 5th position at the moment. It looks like a very strong start for our season's champion with Aston Martin retaining his seat in the 119 V12 Vantage. It's looking very, very strong for the Canadian to be up so high in the qualifying order. Now, normally qualifying's been a bit of an issue for the V12 Vantage. He's made up the majority of his time over the course of the race, and we've seen that proof in the pudding, really, in the last couple of races where he's been consistently in and around those point-scoring positions, and that's what's netting him such a high-up position in the championship. He's joint 3rd with James Mason with 66 points coming into this round. We're going to quickly get on board with the 44. It's Scott Milbank to the line then. 11th fastest as he gets across the line. The number 66 is up next. It's Marian Stoyanov, 10th in the championship with Aston Martin. Down to the line, what can the Bulgarian do from 15th? Crossing the line, doesn't find a time on this last lap. The number 413 of Mason crossing the line also doesn't find a position up from 7th. Next is Hayden Prodger, gunning for 7th there, needs 0.3 of a second on James Mason to make it possible. Can he do so in the Ferrari across the line? Yes, he does, and does so by 0.02 of a second ahead. So already a very, very great start. Wesley Kuiper maintains pole position. Francois de Bont is gaining ground, only about 0.1 of a second off now. Tyler Vermaak 0.2, Jason Bush 0.4, just under, I should say, half a second. As a matter of fact, we'll stay on here just briefly with Jason Bush. Down towards the line he goes. Is it an improvement up to 3rd? He's now got to find 2 more tenths of a second on Tyler Vermaak. Getting across the line, doesn't do so. So very bizarre stuff indeed. As we're seeing now, has to find 0.04 of a second to catch Tyler Vermaak for 3rd place. That is the goal at the moment for Jason Bush. He wants to be on the podium positions for the start of this race. Of course, he has now a championship to try and defend here, leading by 8 points to Diman Ivanov. Diman Ivanov, of course, is in 6th position, just standing there on the entrance to the pit lane. Right now, it could be the case where Jason Bush may have to prioritise just staying ahead of the Aston Martins at all cost, coming into round 3. Checking to see where our next car coming towards the line is. It's Scott Milbank with BMW, the number 44, on his way down through the chase. As we speak, turns 21 and 22. Down through Murray's corner we go then. Is it an improvement for the 44 on this lap around? Getting down across the line from 13th position. Sadly, not the case for the number 44 of Scott Milbank. The 413 is not too far away. That's James Mason, and on his trails there is the number, I believe that's the 66 there. That's Marian Stoyanov. Stoyanov crossing the line 17th fastest, 9.4 seconds off of pole. Something had to have gone wrong there for the 66 to be that far away from the nearest vehicle. Number 26 next to the line, it's Carmelo Abate, last season's runner-up. On an ambitious drive with Porsche, we've yet to see a proper qualifying result materialise for the Italian, yet he's still struggling with the controls of his machine. 3.9 seconds away from pole position. As you can see now, the track flooded by our front-running drivers. Wesley Kuiper, you can see there Christian Lebay also on track. John Prine, Mike Wade, all making their way out on track with 9 minutes 45 left to go in qualifying. On towards their middle of the session runs then. Kuiper has actually lost out pole position as Tyler Vermaak on his last lap just gone has took pole position at 2 minutes .392 by the South African. Is absolutely brutal in that Mustang. He's properly got the reins of that machine now. He's properly ironed things out since Donington. And this is a reinvigorated drive by Vermaak. Could he be hunting down his first race win then? He's got a long way to go in this qualifying session, but it's looking incredibly hopeful for the number 5. For Wesley Kuiper, normally a driver on very resolute runs to pole position, goes relatively unchallenged. This is uncharacteristic of the Dutchman to be so close to the rest of the field. It's normally wide margins the 111 aims for. Right now is really being put through his paces, or are we seeing maybe the hints of some sandbagging here by Wesley Kuiper? Out through turn 19 and onto the Conrod straight we go. You can see further up the road from him there is Christian Lebay in the Aston Martin V12 Vantage. What a fantastic noise that is going to be to hear over the course of this coming race. Down the Conrod straight we go then to turn 21. We just see briefly up the road then. Ladshot Richard is next up to the line with Porsche. We'll just catch the end of this lap then for the Hungarian. Currently 16th, crosses the line. Sadly doesn't find an improvement. Lebay, same story for the Canadian, still in 6th position. Wesley Kuiper starts his flying lap. Or so we thought. He's holding there off of turn 23, allowing Tyler Vermaak to get up the road from him. The South African down to the line. Does he find an improvement to a 2 minutes .2 on that last lap? No, he doesn't, sadly. Wesley Kuiper now firing on all 8 cylinders to hunt him down. Has to find a 1/10 of a second to make pole position possible. Everything is possible when these two are up to the task. We are seeing what is the brewings of a potentially great rivalry coming up over the next couple of rounds, this being the very start of it. I, for one, look forward to seeing how this saga plays out. Tyler Vermaak on a reinvigorated drive with Ford. Wesley Kuiper returning after a hiatus into mainstream racing. It's looking to be a very exciting season indeed. One thing I must note as well is the absence, as of right now, of Melvin Milliston. Now, he was in qualifying predictions to be up towards that front row. Could his absence now invite in this sort of vacuum around it for drivers to jump up a few positions? Now, going back to those qualifying predictions, you can see that Milliston did set a time in the sessions leading up to today, a 2 minutes .472. With his absence, Jason Bush could be promoted to a front row here, but not if Tyler Vermaak has anything to say about it. That was a big off there by Wesley Kuiper. A huge snap as he got down towards McPhillamy Park and down towards Skyline Hill. You can see exactly where things start to kick off for him here. It's over the curb on the right-hand side. Just upsets there. You can see that the car was actually caught in the middle of its diffuser. It was almost doing I think it was an FS 50-50 grind in skating terms. That has really caught him out. That's going to have to be something that he keeps a very close eye on over the course of this race. That has sullied his attempts then at that lap. Ian Skeen now currently holding close to the wall here at Reed and McPhillamy Park. Has set the 3rd fastest time. Now, he snuck under the radar. He didn't set really too many times in quali predictions. And that's left him sort of in a bit of a dark zone here where we can't monitor what our expectations could realistically be for the 696. We know that Ian Skeen is a very solid driver. We saw his talents alongside Hayden Puttock last night in what was a fantastic drive by the pair to secure 2nd place for Euro Titans at the NLRL Console Endurance Series Watkins Glen 4-hour. Now on his own, in the very same Aston Martin we saw last night, what can Skeen do up against this crowd? You see here, Tyler Vermaak did a 2 minutes .392, so yet to have found more time, and it's still 0.113 of a second from Wesley Kuiper. Ian Skeen is getting ever closer to challenging that front row. Has to find 5/100ths of a second, and then some. It's 5/100ths and 5,000ths to equalise with Kuiper for the front row. That's absolutely possible for Aston Martin at this time. Number 1 next across the line, it's Diman Ivanov in 6th then. Next to the line, the number 60, I think that's the 63 if I'm not mistaken. So that's Axel Cassier from 9th position. Does find an improvement, but sadly not enough to gain on James Mason in 8th position ahead. Speaking of, here is James Mason heading out of the chase and down towards Murray's Corner to cap off another flying lap. Right behind him there, you can see the 111 of Wesley Kuiper now getting ready for one more flying lap. He's got about 4.5 minutes here. So about 2 laps left in it before the end of this session. We'll see then if the Dutchman is up to the task. James Mason does find an improvement, I believe, there on Axel Cassier, but sadly not enough to find the gap on Lebay ahead. Has to find a few more thousandths of a second there. That is minute between the pair of them. I think it's about 6 thousandths separating 7th and 8th towards the end of quali. You can see pretty much everyone inside the top 10 bar Cassier is out on track, setting times in what is looking to be a very tense ending to round 3's quali. We'll go next on board with John Prine as he makes his way around turn 23, but into the gravel for the Aston Martin. Sullies the end of what could have been a position improving lap for the Canadian. That's got to be quite a bitter feeling here, but fortunately one more lap for him before the end of this session. The 113 is next to the line. It's Kyle Jenkins with McLaren. What time does he set from 20th? Goes up to 17th. Behind him as well is, I believe that is the 706. It's Kevin Quain with Malwar Racing across the line from 11th place at the moment, just outside the top 10. Has to find 0.8 of a second to catch Hayden Proger in the 222 Ferrari. Number 22 is next across the line. If we try and find the 20, it's not the 22, it's the 23. That's my mistake there. It's Charlie Smith, the youngster in the Ferrari, making his way onto the track then for his last possible opportunity at a flying lap. The Brit has a long way to go here before the checkered flag. Every corner is going to have to count here. Currently set no time, provisionally 19th, alongside Dave Bond, Ben Cheeseman and Robert Ogan. Better late than never, though. Scott Milbank next to the line then has got just enough time left in it for one more flying lap. If he really can squeeze here with this BMW, might even be an extra one on top of that. The 413 is next up to the line. We're going to try and get on board then with James Mason with the BMW. Down across the line from 8th position. He's up to 6th then, ahead of Ivanov and Lebay. So very well done there by the BMW. What is the rebuttal by the 222 down in 10th position? It's Hayden Proger, who was on the podium in Donington Park. We'll see what he can do now here in Mount Panorama. Down across the line, he's up positions then on Cassier, up to 9th. From behind there, Christian Lebay doesn't find a position on this lap, is tantalisingly close to Diman Ivanov. About 0.02 of a second there between both Aston Martins. So the 169 is our next car up to the line here, just out of the chase. Right behind him is John Prine in the Aston Martin. We saw him go into the gravel at turn 23. Is it redemption day for the 22? We'll be watching very closely with as Mike Wade crosses the line in front of him from 12th position. Doesn't find an improvement. Does John Prine find the improvement necessary? Not the case either. The number 63 next up to the line, it's Axel Cassier in 10th position. Just lost out of position to Hayden Proger. As he crosses the line, remains in 10th. Still has to find 0.2 of a second on Proger. Also behind him there was Latchok Richard, 17th with Porsche in the number 19. The 706 of Kevin Quain starts his flying lap. Francois Debont also just crossed the line. Sadly not to find an improvement for position. Still remains in 4th in the number 4 Ford Mustang. Number 23 is next up to the line as we speak. It's Charlie Smith in the Ferrari 296. Down towards the line we go from turn 23. Has he set a time then on the chart? Sadly not this time around. The 696 is behind him there. That's Ian Skeen with Aston Martin. Doesn't find an improvement on this lap gone. The number 1 is next into the fray. It's Diman Ivanov. We're seeing a lot of drivers there with invalidated laps. We'll see whether or not Ivanov's is also invalidated. You can see right behind him there is our current pole sitter. Tyler Vermack is the South African hunting an improvement on his current time. We'll see here out of turn 23, a 2 minutes .392 to beat. Sadly, not this time around. The 413 is next right behind him in what is an absolute maelstrom of times towards the end of qualifying. Sadly, James Mason doesn't find position. Does Wesley Kuiper find position on the end of the last lap? Not the case either. Same story then for the 44 behind him. That's Scott Milbank in 14th. The 222 of Hayden Proger is next to the line. He already found position in the last lap. Up to 9th position. Remains in 9th position at the end of this one just gone. Towards the end of qualifying here. 33 next to the line, it's Jason Bush, still in the top 5 and ahead of championship rivals. So here as we get towards the end of qualifying, we're going to try and catch on board with the 22. This is John Prine with Aston Martin. Next towards the line, behind him is Axel Cassier in 10th with Ford. 7:06 running out of steam before the end of this lap. We'll see then what John Prine can do heading down to the line from 15th position. Is he looking at an improvement? Yes, he is, but for how many positions in the bookings of it? Sadly, none, but still an improvement on a time nonetheless. Cassier crosses the line from behind him there. We'll have to see where Cassier landed at the end of that last lap. You can see trouble for James Mason as we cut over to him there, the 4:13, and Kuiper's right in front of him, and Kuiper has to abort his flying lap. That's going to give Tyler Vermaak his look of pole position. That's solidified then, much to the chagrin of the 111 and for the 44 behind them. That has got to be gut-wrenching. His opportunity to take the time off of Tyler Vermaak has now vanished right in front of him. So for Tyler Vermaak, what we're looking at right now, currently our fastest lap of the session, a 2 minutes .392. Will it be an improvement by the South African on what has been a dominant run of qualifying today here in round 3 of the championship? It's looking ever so strong out through the chase, down towards turn 23. You can see in front of him there's Diman Ivanov. We'll see where they land after this lap gone from 7th position. Ivanov remains 7th. Vermaak sadly doesn't extend his fastest time, but nonetheless holds on to pole position. So we quickly try and catch here. Milbank is next up to the line, the number 44, and then the number 33 of Jason Bush. Milbank spins on turn 23. If we can quickly catch Jason Bush, right behind him is Carmelo Abate. We'll stay on board with Abate here. We haven't got time to try and catch Jason Bush. I guess we're going to have to try it here. See, just at the end of his flying lap, Jason Bush to the line remains in 5th position. What an exciting end to qualifying. We'll have much to recount in the standing grid. You can see over 10 positions there inside one, actually it's about 10 positions inside 1 second there at the end of qualifying. It's going to make for a razor thin start here in Bathurst. It was that one after the other action towards the end of quali. You could never predict from which way the next times were coming from. So, getting a recount then of our standing grid here for round 3 of season 2 of the NLRL Sunday League. It's Tyler Vermaak on pole position with Ford, the number 5, starts ahead of last weekend's race winner Wesley Kuiper in the 111. Ian Skeen right behind the pair of them, and the 696 Aston Martin starts alongside Francois de Bont in the number 4 Ford Mustang. Jason Bush down into the back of the top 5 positions, but starts alongside James Mason in the 413 BMW. Diman Ivanov in 7th starts alongside last season's champion Christian Lebay. Hayden Proger makes the top 10 and ahead of Axel Cassier in the number 63 Ford Mustang. Kevin Quain just outside of the top 10 in the 706 Ford Mustang makes 11th and ahead of Mike Wade in the 169 McLaren. Carmelo Abate, last season's runner-up, is 13th for this round of the championship and alongside Scott Milbank. John Prine rounds out our top 15 and ahead of Kyle Jenkins. Vladok Richard makes 17th for Porsche ahead of Marian Stoyanov. Charlie Smith in 19th then, and rounding out our top 20 is Dave Bond, in the 107. Ben Cheeseman in 21st. Robert Ogan, after a late entry to quali, couldn't set a time, provisionally 22nd, is a long, long way from that front row. And it's going to have to make every move count here. May have just found himself out of the danger zone. As ever, these broadcasts wouldn't be possible without our sponsors at Malwa Transport Incorporated, oversized cargo and trucking logistics specialists of Quebec. If you or someone you know are located in Canada and looking for an efficient professional transportation brokerage service for your business, visit their website on www.malwa-transport.ca. That's www.malois-transport.ca. So as we have a look here at our grid, it is looking incredibly strong for that front row. And that second row with them as well. With such hard chargers as Ian Skeen and Francois de Bont, it's looking ever competitive on our run towards turn 1 and 2. And it's going to be a very rough and ready run for that front row, especially for Wesley Kuiper. He's not got the adage of straight line speed that the Fords around him have. The Aston Martin we've seen as well in the hands of Ian Skeen has some phenomenal top end. So it may very well be a drag race all the way up to Griffin's Bend here on lap 1, but we'll be getting away for our formation lap in a moment's time. It is looking very, very interesting today. Is Wesley Kuiper has he got that iron in him then to hunt down Vermaak for this position? Vermaak looks to be properly fired up on all cylinders for this race. So as we get ready to start our formation lap here, where we're watching from the perspective of today's pole sitter. On his first pole position in the championship, it's Tyler Vermaak in the Ford Mustang, number 5. Be taking us away here. Slightly dimmer conditions, about 8:25 p.m. local here in New South Wales, Australia, for the start of the formation lap. Could very well find their way into sort of twilight, almost full nighttime conditions by the end of this race. You can see the sun just setting beyond the horizon here in Bathurst as we get ready to start round 3. So down through turn 1 on our formation lap. You can see already raring to go as Ian Skeen. He's having to let Wesley Kuiper roll on by up the mountain straight. He's going to be looking to eat Francois Dubont for breakfast down through turn 1. He does not want to give the Belgian an inch here on the run towards turn 1. Very easy to lose your position out even when you qualify ahead. And I'm sure that's the same anxiety befalling the number 5. We know that Wesley Kuiper has some strong starts when it comes to being challenged for pole position. We know what he can do when he's put under pressure. We know what Tyler Vermaak is capable of under pressure as well, and pressure does create diamond in most circumstances. So between the pair of these two, it is really hard to point in the right direction as to who exactly you could expect to see lead after turn 1. But we do know, on paper at least, that Ford has definitely got quite a good chance of it here. It's the fastest car in a straight line, as too is the same for BMW and for Lexus, all of which inside the top 10. It's going to make for what is a rip-roaring start here in New South Wales, Australia at Mount Panorama. We know that getting into this section, the mountain section of the track, is where Kuiper is definitely going to have the upper hand. He's got superior manoeuvrability in that McLaren. But as we saw back in Watkins Glen last night, manoeuvrability can only take you so far when you're up against straight line grunt, and we saw that in the fight with the Ferrari, the 414 MSA versus the 696 Euro Titans Aston Martin. Are we going to see a mirror match of that in the hands of Vermaak v Kuiper? Heading to McPhillamy Park. Now Kuiper's going to be sizing this corner up. He had that problem during quali and during practice, I believe, where he skidded over the right-hand side. That curb just on the end of McPhillamy. If you touch that in any capacity in a mid-engine car, is a very, very surefire way to spin it out before you get to Skyline Hill. He does not need that at this length of championship. He's already started about a round down after his calamity in Spa. Turned it into redemption in Donington Park. Has got a championship to try and fight for here. Kuiper isn't too far away from a championship lead in his own respect, but for Tyler Vermaak, this is definitely the start of a major bridging point in his own run for a championship title here in the Sunday League. Opportunities are aloft here. We're under a third into the championship. Round 3 of 10. 7 more rounds left to go after this one. Plenty of opportunity in store for all drivers. We'll see exactly where the penny drops then on the start of this race. See, heading down the Conrod Straight, expect to see theatrics along this section of the track. This is where slipstream properly comes into effect. That straight line speed that Vermaak's got with the Ford Mustang platform will need to come to great use here on his run down towards the chase to keep Kuiper at bay. I highly doubt this is going to be as smooth a defence as he thinks it is. He's having to gear himself up for what is going to be a royal rumble for that first leading position. Ian Skeen is just going to be sizing the pair of them up here from a distance, analysing their weaknesses, waiting for them to trip over one another. Skeen, of course, is one of Vermaak's teammates at Euro Titans, but they're going to be sort of ditching the camaraderie of teamwork here. They've got individual battles to fight for. So watching on with Tyler Vermaak as we now line up 22 cars in all for round 3 of the championship. The sun is now properly set beyond the horizon. We're in for nighttime racing. Sure fire here. 8:29 p.m. local time here in New South Wales, Australia. The sun is beyond the horizon, and we're about to go very firmly, very quickly into nighttime. So rounding turn 23, it is an incredibly short run to the start-finish line here on round 3 of the championship. It's looking very strong up at the front row. Without further ado then, ladies and gents, as we go rolling, 22 cars in all, 11 cars aside of it. On our way down towards turn 1. We're green and racing here in the land down under. A great start by our front row then. Vermaak holding the inside off of Kuiper. Skeen sizing the pair of them up as we go running into Hell Corner. Kuiper takes it the long way around the outside to put himself side by side with Tyler Vermaak on his run up the mountain straight for the first time. All 22 cars in all through turn 1 with very relative ease. Vermaak alongside Kuiper then. Kuiper's leading up towards turn 2. A very grand start by Wesley Kuiper because Francois de Bont already challenging Ian Skeen for position. Vermaak's going long into turn 2 around the outside but can't hold his nerve. Ian Skeen looks to be surfing him through for second position. Wesley Kuiper leads after turn 2. Now into the cuttings. Vermaak's down to third. So what a start by Ian Skeen and by Wesley Kuiper. They're already up a position since the race start. It's been a bit of a blinder for Tyler Vermaak. He's got to keep himself cool now for the next 59 minutes of racing. It is not down and out by any stretch of the imagination. He knew that this was not going to be an easy lead to defend from, and he really got caught on his way up the mountain straight. He's now hunting down Skeen for position, so it's Kuiper from Skeen, Vermaak, de Bont and Bush round out our top 5. LeBay hunting down from 6th. See Kevin Quain having to dodge the Skyline Hill chicane. We can also see, I think that's Mike Wade in trouble as well. So yellow flags are out for this sector of the track. The 169 in serious trouble. Mike Wade's into the pit. You can also see Marian Stoyanov and Ben Cheeseman were caught up in that as well. Behind them, that's Robert Ogan in the number 96. We're back in the green flag conditions. Looking back up at our front row, Ian Skeen is under serious attack here from Tyler Vermaak in the Ford Mustang, looking to chase down his teammate at Euro Titans. Down into the chase here, turns 21 and 22. Right behind him is Jason Bush and Francois de Bont. Bush is up a position then, utilising great straight line speed from the Lexus to get up on the Ford Mustang of Francois de Bont. Out through turn 23 we go. What a start then here in Bathurst. Charlie Smith, we can see, is just sizing up John Prine for position on our way down to turn 23. The Ferrari's going to try and go the long way around. And John Prine, cutting back across the apex there, was able to hold off the 23. So having a look around the field to see where our next fights are coming from here. Everyone's settling into a little bit of a pattern. We're watching here with Christian LeBay. He's side by side with Francois de Bont and up into the top 5 then in the 119 Aston Martin, taking it to the inside at turn 2. The Mustang's going to have to go the long way around town here at Griffin's Bend. Can't find the rim for it though. Is down a position then. Down 2 positions as a matter of fact in the last lap there. It's not been the greatest of starts by Francois de Bont, but he's got 57 minutes to make up for it. Christian LeBay's on a blinder of a start. Up a few positions then from race start. Now into the top 5. Having a look around, Tyler Vermaak now starting to weigh in on his fight against Ian Skeen. He's getting ever closer to that Aston Martin on our way through McPhillamy. It's getting very, very close, uncomfortably so, between these two on our run down Skyline Hill into the S's, then the Dipper. You see damage there, a bump against the wall by Ian Skeen. That's Tyler Vermaak through just before Forrest's elbow. That could have ended in calamity there. A good save by Ian Skeen. His car got snagged against the wall down through the S's, but he's holding firm to his teammate. Vermaak may not be out of the woods just yet. You can see Jason Bush has been a passive observer, may quickly become an extra element in this fight for second position. It's looking very strong between Vermaak and Skeen. Minor contact, I think, there between the Mustang and the Aston. The Lexus now, not from too far away, is looking to enter this fight swinging on both arms. Vermaak has to cut the chase there. Skeen's alongside and ahead. Bush looks to make it two's company. Is going to really be forced in for it at turn 23. Is going to have to try a very lofty move to try and get past Tyler Vermaak. That was incredibly close between all 3 of these drivers. We're still on board then with Tyler Vermaak, who's now having to size up. What does he do to defend third position? Ian Skeen's up the road now, 0.6 ahead out of turn 1. Jason Bush is sizing up third as we speak on our run up the mountain straight. You can see the gap there. And there's Christian LeBay emerging from the shadows of the number 33 Lexus. The 119 is now just as much an active fighter in this battle for third. can see Francois de Bont still hanging onto the back of the Aston. We could find ourselves multiple cars in all for the fight of third position, of which Tyler Vermaak is having to defend. So right now, Wesley Kuiper leads. Ian Skeen in second by about 8 seconds to Wesley Kuiper. Then about half a second behind him is Tyler Vermaak. Then Bush, then LeBay, then de Bont, then Mason. We'll give you a full rundown about 10 minutes into this race. We've got about 4 minutes until we do so. Heading down through Skyline Hill, then you can see just how much pace Vermaak is carrying. We're now back into the fight for second position between the South African and the Brit on that second row. Jason Bush in the number 33 Lexus now has dropped a little bit of a gap between the Mustang and himself. Now having to size up, what does he do against Christian LeBay in the Aston Martin. Things start to spread out there. The 107's in trouble. That's Dave Bond down at McPhillamy. We're going to quickly see what's gone on there. And the number 19 is also in trouble and into the pits almost immediately. I believe that was Latchrock Richard. Yes, it is, in the Porsche. So let's quickly get back on board before we miss anything here. From the perspective of, we're trying to catch him, Tyler Vermaak. See the gap at the moment between himself and Ian Skeen for control of second. Kuiper leads. You can see that gap is starting to diminish in that last lap. A few skids here and there have invited both of these drivers to come and have a go at Wesley Kuiper's control of the race lead. Ian Skeen could be eyeing up a move into the lead of this race. He was in third by the end of quali. Is looking to elevate this to a race lead. You can see he is really not too far away. 0.4 of a second between the two leading cars. Then Vermaak, then Bush, then LeBay, all in the top 5 there within a second of each other. What an exhilarating start then we're seeing here at Mount Panorama. We're going to have to go on board then with Ian Skeen, because we're about to see here the precipice for the battle of the race lead. 0.2 of a second. We're on board then with Aston Martin's Ian Skeen in the battle for first place against Wesley Kuiper. Tyler Vermaak is about the same distance behind in there. You can see absolutely no wiggle room between all three of these cars in the mountain section. Ford, Aston and McLaren all duking it out for the race lead. You can see how close to the ragged edge they're all having to push on their way through McPhillamy. This is second to none performance by all three of them. Absolutely brutal, right on the knife edge here between all three competitors. And Wesley Kuiper, for those who dare win, has really pushed the envelope out in that last sector to push away from Ian Skeen. He's now having to size up a defence here for second place on his teammate Tyler Vermaak in the Ford Mustang. The 413 is in trouble down at turn 18. That's Forrest's elbow. And James Mason as well. The 222's been caught up with him. Mason and Prodger both caught at turn 18. There goes John Prine. Behind him, Charlie Smith, Scott Milbank and Carmelo Abate makes contact with the wall. Ben Cheeseman as well. Now moving past the site of the incident. Jenkins as well. And Ogan. So I have to cut away from this fight here to try and catch what's gone on. Prodger is back out on track, but he's in 16th position. Next in his sights would be Robert Ogan. We're back in the green flag conditions. We're on board here with Dave Bond. We had an issue down the line in this race. See Abate slowly catching up to Ben Cheeseman in the 114. That McLaren had a few issues in Donington, but is looking much, much stronger. Abate's into the pits then with damage on that Porsche. 51 minutes left to go in this race. He's still got a long way to salvage it. Kuiper still leads then from Skeen and Vermaak in the top 3. Kuiper's made light work then of this race start. 10 minutes in and is leading the session here. It's just having a weigh up. How exactly does he go about defending from Ian Skeen? We've seen how much of a hard customer the 696 can be when position calls for it. He's no longer thinking about small fry in second and third place. He's thinking about first. Ian Skeen's going for the big pot here of the lead of this race. So what then can our race leader do up against such stiff competition in round 3? I doubt he expected to have people challenge him this closely over the course of this round. He's going to have to put everything into the performance to get away. So then, 10 minutes into this session, and what a start it has already been. We are far from over when it comes to position changes already. Wesley Kuiper leads this race from Ian Skeen and Tyler Vermaak with the fastest lap in the number 5. Jason Bush in 4th with Christian LeBay up to 5th with Aston Martin. Diman Ivanov in 6th in the number 1 Aston ahead of Kevin Quain. Charlie Smith's up into the top 10. In the number 23, Ferrari 296, John Prine in 9th. Scott Milbank rounds out the top 10. Ben Cheeseman in 11th. Kyle Jenkins 12th. Robert Ogan up to 13th. Hayden Prodger down to 14th. Marian Stoyanov in 15th position. Dave Bond in 16th. Francois Debont down to 17th position. Carmelo Abate in the pit lane from 18th. Axel Cassier down to 19th. And Mike Wade down to 20th. So where some have fallen, some have been able to rise, and we may very soon see a change here for the race lead. Wesley Kuiper is now fighting for his leading position of this race against Ian Skeen. The Aston Martin is right in the slipstream now on the McLaren. Up the mountain straight we go. Ian Skeen's going to have to try around the outside here on Wesley Kuiper for the race lead here in Bathurst. The Aston goes long, late on the brakes by the 696. Nearly contact between the pair of them. Ian Skeen is up into the lead of this race. Tyler Vermaak looks to follow on his charge there past Wesley Kuiper. Kuiper may drop 2 positions before the cuttings, and that he does. Oh my word, a sudden and dramatic change here. Jason Bush is next up to try here on Wesley Kuiper as we make our way around Quarry Corner. Where the others had succeeded, he had failed to try and get past the Dutchman, who are now lost out on first. Is now down at the back of the podium positions. We'll have to quickly get on board then, as we quickly see here. Jenkins and Ogan side by side on their run towards turn 2. Ogan up a position for his efforts, but let's go on board our new race leader, Ian Skeen, in the 696 Aston Martin. What a move then around turn 2. Vermaak second, Kuiper third, Bush 4th. Absolutely licked the stamp and sent it around the outside at turn 2. And now is opening the taps. 0.4 of a second from the Mustang behind, leading this race. You can see towards the top end then, in and around 6th gear, how much more time Vermaak is clawing back on the Aston Martin. Heading down towards turn 23. What is going to be the going rates here for Ian Skeen in his potential prospect of having to defend from Vermaak, who himself is still properly fired up to hunt down the race win. Yellow flags are out. It's for the 107 Dave Bond down at McPhillamy, and Skyline has run into even more trouble. A slide there, if you saw that, out of turn 1 by Skeen, showing you just how hard he's having to push the Aston here to keep pace. Properly pushing that machine to the ragged edge. Into turn 2 we go. It's Skeen from Vermaak from Kuiper. Kuiper now 0.8 of a second away from Jason Bush, is slowly dropping away from Tyler Vermaak. Catch up with them in a moment's time. We'll have a look around the field here to see where our next fights could be coming from. Hayden Prodger on his charge back towards the top 10 is not too far away from Robert Ogan, you can see making his way up the mountain straight now. Looking to see where our next possible fights are coming from. We can see that only hovering around a second away from Jason Bush, as he now starts to size up Wesley Kuiper for position, is Christian LeBay in the Aston Martin number 119. So we'll get a view from the driver caught right firmly in the middle of things here towards the back of the top 5. It's Jason Bush in the number 33. He's been 2 times on the podium this season, hunting his 3rd. Number 26 ran into some trouble back down the order there. That's Carmelo Abate yet again down at turn 17. It seems to be the Achilles heel for Porsche in this round of the championship. The 107's into the pit lane. That could be the end of the line for Dave Bond. A symphony on all cylinders here for the battle at the back of the top 5. 2 V8s versus a V12. It is a proper sonorous cry we're hearing at the latter half of the Mount Panorama circuit. Down towards turn 23 we go then to start off another lap, kicking off lap 7. 45 minutes left to go. What an opening quarter we have laid witness to. You can And see at the moment, those two Euro Titans cars are just absolutely flying away here. Vermaak is slowly catching up to Skeen. It's 0.4 of a second between the Mustang and the Aston. They could soon be looking for their own little battle of first place. Vermaak looking to take back his starting position off of Skeen, who has had an absolute blinder of a race so far in the opening 15 minutes. We're still on board then, the number 33 of Jason Bush in 4th position. In front of him was our leading car after turn 2, Wesley Kuiper, and last weekend's race winner. And then behind him was last season's champion, Christian Lebay in the 119. They're all about the same distance from one another. Is that Vermaak? Oh my word, it's Tyler Vermaak. He's into the wall after Reed Park. It's all gone pear-shaped for the number 5. Kuiper and Bush are upper position. The 169 has brought the yellow flags out ahead. That's Mike Wade there on the left-hand side down Skyline Hill. What on earth happened? Out of the wall of death. Well, it's pretty self-explanatory, but what on earth happened for the number 5 of Tyler Vermaak? It has gone to pot there. Absolute disaster for the number 5. Let's see if we can try and get on board with Tyler Vermaak. He's now down a proper handful of positions now as he gets to turn 18, with Mike Wade in 20th there right behind him. He's dropped down to 6th from 2nd. He's dropped 4 positions over the course of one sector. Damage on board that Mustang. Yellow flags are back out. It's for that same sector as last time. Now it's the number 23's turn to be befelled by misfortune, and that's Charlie Smith in the Ferrari there. The youngster running into trouble is now out of the top 10. Was looking at a very promising 9th, potentially 8th, even 7th position finish. Is now dropping position to Robert Ogan, who has been on a remarkable comeback drive in that Lexus. Green flags are back out then temporarily, but black and oranges for Charlie Smith as he struggles to keep that car running straight down the Conrod. With the snap of fingers there, it has all suddenly shifted on its head. We're now on board with Christian Lebay as he fights for 3rd against Jason Bush. We'll just give you a listen in on that fantastic sound of the V12 under the bonnet of this Aston Martin as he goes hunting down that 5.4 litre in front of him, that Lexus with its naturally aspirated V8 and the McLaren with the twin turbo 4 litre V8 in front of them. 3 cars in all. We're looking at a potential battle here for 2nd on our hands, even further than the 3rd position fight we've started watching. So out through turn 18 we go. You can see Wesley Kuiper has really opened the taps there in that 2nd sector. He's properly vanished from sight there, away from Bush and Lebay. They've now been left to their own devices down the Conrod to engage in their own unique brand of side-by-side action here. The old machines learning some new tricks. The Lexus versus the Aston like it was back in the old days of ACC, reunited in the modern Vale. As we go through the chase, I'd say but mere corners away from some side-by-side action between the two. So then, with nearly 20 minutes covered, Ian Skeen confidently leading this race now. Wesley Kuiper has begun his comeback drive, now slowly gaining time on the leading Aston Martin. Right behind him then is what is unfolding in front of our very eyes, a fight for the last of those podium positions between Jason Bush, who is no stranger to a good podium finish this season, 2 on the trot, looking for 3 in a row. Christian Lebay hunting down his first podium since last season. Very well sitting in either of their hands here. It could go either which way with how close these have been to each other since the race start. See, not too far away if they continue to fight side by side and slow each other down. Diman Ivanov in the number 1 Aston Martin could find his way into this fight very, very shortly. He's up into the top 5. So too is Kevin Crane up to the top 6 after the accident by the number 5 of Tyler Vermaak. Quickly put a rest to his hopes then of a win in Bathurst. out through McPhillamy Park. You can see just before the downhill section at Skyline and the S's and Dipper how much time Bush makes up on Kuiper, and then Kuiper absolutely vanishes up the road before we've hit Forest's Elbow. There's a real concertina effect there being shown up between Bush and Kuiper. LeBay is having to sort of hold his nerve a little bit on his run through that middle sector. That's slowly brought about an end then to his fight for third for at least now. You can see straight line speed still in the court of Aston Martin. They're able to keep pace with Lexus on the run down the 1.9 kilometres that comprise the Conrad Straight here in Bathurst. But he's just too far away, I think, to stage a proper move to the inside. You can see he can get much, much later on the brakes than Bush can. But by the time we're down at turn 23, it's just the start of the same cycle over and over again for LeBay. Caught in a vicious concertina between himself and the Lexus in front. We'll catch up with these two in a moment's time. We see here Robert Ogan, the other of the two Lexus, is in this race as he's side by side then with Ben Cheeseman. That quickly becomes single file. You can see Hayden Prodger is practically sniffing at a top 10. A proper comeback drive then from last week's podium sitter. He's side by side with Cheeseman. We're actually going to look from the perspective of Ogan. You can see on the right hand side is the Ferrari that quickly now filters back in behind Cheeseman. Prodger chasing Cheeseman down to, funnily enough, the chase here on track. Prodger to the inside, though we're trying to get a look at it here from the rear view. The Lexus in front of them. Prodger's up to 10th. Ogan's still hunting down 8th on Prine ahead of him. Cheeseman's looking to take this around the outside at turn 23. What is going to be the resolve then by Hayden Prodger? He's holding on to that top 10 position. Very nicely done by the 222. Looking around the field then to see where our next fight's coming from. Wesley Kuiper has to make up 2.6 seconds here on Ian Skeen, slowly clawing back in the time, but is really having to nail that McLaren through the middle sector of this track. And you can see just how skittish it's been over the last couple of laps. He's really been teetering around a major incident. Whereas the Aston has been able to just plough its way downhill. And by the time it's down at the Conrad, even if the McLaren's made up time, the Aston can just soar away in a straight line, knowing it's got that advantage over McLaren. Jason Bush, 1.6 seconds away, is having to worry more about the Aston behind him, the Aston leading this race. So looking around the field here to see where our next fights are coming from. See Prodger now starting to open the taps against Cheeseman, who lost out for that top 10 position in what looks to be, I'm trying to study this from a distance here, this livery. We're going to go on board with Prodger in a moment as he's eyeing up both Milbank and Ogan in what looks to be a grand fight at the back of the top 10. Looks like I think that's a McLaren Vodafone style livery there, the chrome and the red from the years gone by of McLaren before they started adopting the papaya orange in their Formula 1 teams. I think it's something along those lines there. Very handsome livery though on Ben Cheeseman's car. Could be a free position on the horizon here. As you can see ahead of them, Scott Milbank has damage. Prodger's alongside and ahead. You can see that the bumper is hanging low on that BMW. It's a free position then. You can see John Prine now under attack by Robert Ogan. We try and catch on board with them here. Ogan then along and then ahead of John Prine on his way through the chase. I must say as well, it's been an understated performance by Prine to be up inside the top 10 there after his qualifying session. Smiles all round by the looks of it at the moment for the Malwar team. They've got two cars inside the top 10. They've got a car potentially even looking at a podium here in this race. Kevin Quain as well. He's got Carmelo Abate for company though on separate lengths of the race. He's in a confident top 5. All three of those Malwar racing cars are inside the top 10, right where they want them to be. And that's going to be the consistent going rate for all three of the Canadian drivers going into the rest of the season. Even though I mentioned as well in the discussion between, I think it was Skeen and Vermaak, obviously they are part of the same team, but they'd probably be throwing a little bit of the camaraderie to one side so that they can have their own race to themselves. Some teams have a different predicament about that. Now, there are plenty of representatives of larger teams present in this championship, but of course with no present teams championship, none of that really holds a major stake of it. They are just there to represent. So we've seen, you know, representatives. This is the best example of such as well. We're watching right now Wesley Kuiper is representing K1 Esports. Ahead of him is Ian Skeen representing Euro Titans. And LeBay, as well as Quain and Prine, all representing the Maloir Racing team. So it's an interesting dichotomy we're seeing here. You've got drivers out for their own individual talents. You've got drivers representing with teams and drivers driving by themselves. Now, Ben Cheeseman's one of the drivers with K1 Esports. You can see he's not sporting the colours, but he's just sporting one of the numbers. So he's in it for his own enjoyment. He's not in it to represent for the team at this leg of the championship. In it to have fun. And I think that's some of the beauty that comes with the Sunday League. So we're going to go back on board. We were saying we were going to get a look at this, and it's Hayden Prodger, who's eyeing up from the back of the top 10. He's now up to 9th. He's up a free position there after we saw the damage on board Milbank's BMW. Prodger could be eyeing up 8th or potentially even 7th. It's been a remarkable comeback drive by the 222 today. We obviously had that incident down at turn 18. He's been able to salvage that to being back inside the top 10. Now, if we get a look on our overall standings coming into this round of the championship, Prodger is up there inside the top 10, and it's razor thin across the top 10 at the moment. Of course, leading with 78 points is Jason Bush, Demon Ivanov with 70s in second, and James Mason and Christian LeBay joint third with 66 points. Francois Debont with 65 in fifth, is a single point away. Axel Cassier in sixth. Kevin Quain joint sixth with him with 60 points. Right behind them is Kuiper in joint 8th. We're staying on board though, and what is the fight for 8th position from Hayden Prodger's perspective, as he's now eyeing up that move on John Prine. See, Prodger is himself joint 8th with Kuiper, and then Marian Stoyanov rounding out the top 10. A very well crafted move then by Hayden Prodger. He forced that sort of fake dive bomb on Prine, forced him to run wide round turn 2, and then just soared on by. Very well held by Hayden Prodger. That was clinical precision by the 222. See, this was Scott Milbank. He had damage earlier on. He's now managed to get the nose fixed on that 44, but he is down in 13th position, some way away from the top 10. His goal coming into the latter half of this race here, we're nearly at the halfway mark, will be to get back into the top 10, get into those vital point scoring positions. Now, of course, the point scoring charts, we bring this back up, we mentioned this in the last couple of rounds, is razor thin for this championship, and that carries all the way down to 40th position. Of course, first getting 40 points, 40th getting 1 point, so it goes down in increments of 1. Being inside the top 10, of course, these are the best positions in-house. It doesn't take a genius to tell you that. And everyone wants to be inside those top 10 positions because it looks better on paper as well, even though the points yield for being in, say, 13th is still not actually that bad at all. Everyone wants to be as close as they can to those vital top 10 positions because those are the ones that typically have the greatest impact in anyone's run of the championship. We're watching right now ahead of the perspective of Christian LeBay as we're quickly seeing what is now the becoming battle of second Kuiper v Jason Bush for second place. Wesley Kuiper has dropped massively behind Ian Skeen now. He's 3.5 seconds up the road. Kuiper's having to size up. How does he defend here from the attacking Lexus and Aston Martin of Jason Bush and Christian LeBay in what is looking to be a very, very timid second half of this race for Kuiper? A lot of the momentum that McLaren was able to give him in the opening 30 minutes is starting to dwindle as he's pushed that machine beyond the event horizon of what it's capable of. You can see he's having to tiptoe out of most of these corners now where the Lexus is still able to plough on through the Aston very swiftly on its tail. We'll stay on board with Jason Bush. We are looking very shortly here at the battle of second place in this race. At the moment, we're just holding short. About a bit of an issue there with the graphic for Jason Bush, but fortunately everything should be a-okay. Watching in this fight then for second, he's looking towards the inside on his run down towards turn 1 then on Wesley Kuiper. Christian LeBay hanging right behind him. We'll try and get on board the perspective of the defending car of this three, just so that we've got the best view of this battle, that being Wesley Kuiper in the McLaren number 111, last weekend's race winner. Could be under serious attack here for even second position of this race. As side by side with him now goes Jason Bush in the number 33. The Lexus is going to try and take this the long way around, just like the 696 did earlier on Tyler Vermack. Or just like, I should say, Wesley Kuiper did on Tyler Vermack, not the 696. That's my mistake there. Kuiper holds his nerve though. You're not going to fool me twice, he says, heading up round turn 2. Now as we head out of Quarry, Bush still right on the tail of Wesley Kuiper, having to defend for second. He's into the wall though at Quarry. He's in at the wall. Major damage for the 111 of Wesley Kuiper. The yellow flags are out. Kuiper is out of this race in what has been a sudden and dramatic shift of events there for the Dutchman. His hopes of a race win today have now been shattered in front of his eyes. What it has done, however, at the halfway mark of this race is just promoted 2 more drivers up the order. Ian Skeen still leads this race. Jason Bush is up to second, or will be up to second momentarily. Christian Lebay will be up onto the podium with Aston Martin. This is going to seriously extend his chances in this championship. Jason Bush will continue to extend his lead over the Aston Martin of Diman Ivanov, the number 1 car, which is down in what will be 4th position in this race. He's still got 2 positions up on that Aston. He's leading by 8 points in the championship. Jason Bush will be elated with this sudden turn of events. It's a free position for the Lexus, but he still has that Christian Lebay shaped problem on his tail. Then the 119 eager for second place. A sudden and dramatic shift then for Wesley Kuiper. That's got to be gut-wrenching for the Dutchman. I think he is going to try and get back out on track. Still in the pit lane at the moment. The 111 weighing up. Does it take repairs and try and get to the checkered flag, get some points in on this race, or is it over with 28 minutes left to go? We're still watching then the fight for second. Lebay's alongside Bush then on our run. That's the wrong button. Our run down towards turn 2. No yellow flags. There are technically for the opening straight. Lebay's to the inside then. Bush loses out the position. He's going to try and fight him back here on the run towards the cuttings. Lebay's up to second. Bush is down to third. The battle of the old machines kicks off into full swing. Round the cutting we go. Turn 3 and 4. What a sudden shift that has been then. Fortune has shined upon Christian Lebay. He's up 2 positions then in the span of 2 laps. We try and get on board then with the 119. As we see here, this is the race leader, Ian Skeen. He's now 8 seconds up the road. He's got this one practically bagged here. Don't want to speak too soon, though. Let's take another look around the field. Hayden Prodger's up an extra position, up to 7th. We'll be happy with the comeback drive he shared in over the course of this race. While it may not be the podium position he shared in Donington, he'll be happy to see his name up in the points charts. Christian Lebay has had an absolute screamer of a lap, but he's now having a look at a defence here for second place. Lebay has Bush right on his tail. That Lexus is technically faster in a straight line, but not by a long metric. They're side by side on the run towards the chase. Hitting turn 20, the fastest corner in touring car history. Turn 20 quickly becomes turn 21 and 22. Bush cannot outbrake Lebay. That Aston is absolutely down on the anchors towards turn 21 and 2. White flags are out. We may have a potential yellow flag on our hands here as we continue to watch the fight for second place between Christian Lebay and Jason Bush. In that last lap, he was 0.8 faster. However, just because of that raw straight line speed that he's got, Jason Bush is not letting go of this fight for second. There is a white flag out. Slow car ahead. That's not a yellow flag just yet. The 222 may potentially bring out the yellow flags. There is an incident down at Skyline Hill. We do have yellow flags there for Skyline Hill further up the road at the moment. Bush there dropping some position from Lebay. 0.9, nearly a second between the Aston and the Lexus in the fight for second place. We're back into green flags momentarily, but there looks to be serious trouble up ahead for Hayden Prodger. Let's see if we can try and get on board with the 222. Something has run amok for Prodger. He's down 2 positions to 9th. Try and catch him here, the 222, making his way down the Conrod Straight. What is the state of affairs for Hayden Prodger? You can see that car is damaged over the nose. Lights are damaged and he can't keep the car running straight on the road. It's a similar predicament we saw Charlie Smith in earlier this race. Ferrari have really ran into a serious speed bump in this race, and he's running into even more than that. Evidently not a big fan of the VW Amarok, annihilating all 3 of those signs. There goes Axel Cassier up a position. Prodger is in serious trouble, trying to wrestle the controls back in favour of that Ferrari. All he's got to do is try and get it to the pit lane here and salvage the points they're in. Cheeseman's 7 seconds up the road from him. looking to close the gap here just before turn 23. Prodigy can barely keep the car running straight. There's great anxiety afoot there. Kuiper is back out on track. I will give him commendments for that. He has held his nerve there. He didn't back out of the race. He is going to take this to the checkered flag, reluctantly so, knowing what could have been. But such is the case that Bathurst is a track, like I said, it takes indiscriminately. That was major knock there for Hayden Prodigy on his way into the pits. You can see how hard he's having to pull that Ferrari to one side. It's crabbing on its way up the pit lane road. See, at the moment, we're back with LeBay and Bush. That gap's done very little to change. That's gone from about 0.9 to 0.7. We're going to have to get on board another incident on our way down the Conrod. It's the 169 in trouble this time around. Mike Wade with McLaren. We'll try and get on board with him here just before he hits turn 21, if I'm lucky. Or the menus will just not give me what it is I'm looking for. Here, Mike Wade, number 169. Looks like potential damages on that McLaren. He's been going slow down the Conrod straight and peeling into the pits then. A similar predicament to the 222. Damages to repair for that McLaren. DeBont and Prine side by side for 7th. We're going to get on board with that battle right here and now. The fight for 7th place from the perspective of the number 22, John Prine, having to defend from Francois DeBont. The Mustang's got better straight line speed on him, but he'll be to the inside on our run into turn 20. What can John Prine do here? He's going to have to be very brave, but it looks like DeBont's already got him pitched dead to rights for 7th position. DeBont's up to 7th, Prine's down to 8th. He's hoping DeBont runs wide over the chase, is following him through turns 21 and 2. Out through turn 23 then, that's a quick, decisive end to the fight for 7th. You can see Mike Wade is actually, what looked to be there, was that holding short of the pit lane. Diman Ivanov is into the pit lane as well. Yellow flags are out then, the 169 holding short of the pit lane has brought the yellow flags out. Further technical confoundments for the 169 car. It's all gone horribly wrong for quite a few drivers here past the midway. Diman Ivanov now forfeiting position as he exits pit lane there to Axel Cassier. We're looking at the imminent fight then on our hands for 8th position. Ivanov fired up in the number 1, may even have fresh tyres on that Aston Martin for the last 23 minutes of racing. We'll stay on board then the number 1 as we go barreling out of turn 2. The gap at the moment 1.2 seconds as we hit the cuttings. Through Quarry Corner, you can see that Cassier has just got so much more flow at the moment at this stage of the race. He's up in 8th position. He's been on a real comeback drive in that Mustang. Whereas Diman Ivanov has to wrestle some heat into those tyres now. One of the major challenges faced by GT3 drivers in ACC is that management of tyre heat, building that core temperature, because that's going to stay with you for a long time. If those tyres don't get cooked up properly, you're not going to have as much peak grip. If they get cooked over their optimum temperature, you're going to have a car that is incredibly skittish and is operating beyond its means. At the moment for Diman Ivanov, he's just not got the tyres warmed up, and it's very hard to when the sun is no longer a factor. You've not got any ambient heat keeping the track nice and toasty. Track temperature is only going to keep dropping, so he's really got to drive that Aston like he stole it. He's going to have to drive the absolute doors off of it to get heat back in those tyres. You can see just how much he's struggling there through the chase. Ian Skeen leading this race with Aston Martin. Looks to give them in about 21.5 minutes time if he can hold his nerve. Aston Martin's first win since the Season 1 finale at the Nürburgring. It's looking incredibly hopeful. It'll also be his first win in the Sunday League, and it'll be 3 unique race winners in 3 races, so looking to be a very exciting start to the season. In a similar vein to what we saw in Season 1, Hayden Prodigy, though, has a stop-go 30-second penalty, so the stewards are kicking him whilst he's down there, as he had very little control of that machine on his way into the pits. I'd say that's a little bit unfair to have given it to him. Not that we can necessarily do too much to police how ACC chooses to hand out its penalties. If he was speeding on his way to that marker, then he was speeding on his way to that marker. I don't think prevailing circumstances would have shone favourably upon him. Nonetheless, though, he's soldiering on, and that's that grit and determination on display from Proger. That is something you really can't take away from him. It's one of his shining qualities as a driver, is his ability to knuckle down and just get on with it. He's got a very stiff upper lip mentality when the time calls upon it. We'll see what he can do then with 20 minutes left to go. Kevin Quain's into the pits from the 706 Mustang, so something had to have gone wrong for him there. He's now out of the top 10. Tyler Vermack slowly making his way back in. Now he'll be up a position on his way past turn 23. The Mustang now on a much needed revival drive here. Slowly making his way back towards the top 10. He holds the fastest time of this session so far, a 2:01.487 on track. His last lap was a 2:01.775. If he can consistently manage 2:01s, he will start very quickly making the time up on the car in 11th, that being Carmelo Abate. As to whether or not he can catch Scott Milbank in the 44, it is looking a bit of a tall order, but nothing's impossible here when he's put his mind to it. We'll see exactly where the penny drops for him later on. Hayden Proger then coming into the pits to serve their stop-go. We're watching here with Kevin Quain in the pits in the 706. Now be a free position for Wesley Kuiper. It'll be up to 14th. If he can catch Quain on the exit of the pits here, he's just out through turn 23. May even have to chase Quain side by side. It's looking very close between the pair of them. Kuiper's down on the brakes and up and ahead there just before the exit of the pit lane. You can see there's Ian Skeen, the race leader, being joined by Kevin Quain and Wesley Kuiper in 14th and 15th. And you see him showing them the lights there. He's got a race to win here. He's not leaving anything up to chance. That's hence the urgency on the 696. See here, Francois Debont back up into the top 10. He's in the top 5 positions now. He's had a very, very strong race today. Down through Skyline, here he goes. He has to cut the chicane though. He gave it a little bit too much going down into turn 11. And I think where a lot of the drivers start to lose their nerve is down towards Skyline. It's such a high commitment area of the track. You brake too hard and you risk spinning the car out. You brake too little and you run the risk of going into the wall. So a real compromising act there. And you want to carry obviously as much momentum as you can, because it's going to dictate how fast you end up going throughout that entire sector. It's a pure momentum game, all downhill. And it's going to rely solely on how you start that off. Cassier then up to 6th. Axel Cassier, I must say, has had a remarkable drive so far. He's now ahead of Diman Ivanov. And Ivanov slowly trying to make the time back to Cassier. Of course, we saw that earlier on, where Cassier's just had so much more flow in the tank at this late stage of the race. We've got 17 minutes left to go. We're going to get a look at our standings in a few minutes' time. Ivanov is slowly raking the time in, but it's took a long, long way and a very hard opening drive on that new, what looks to be new set of tyres for the number 1 Aston. To fight then against the number 63, Axel Cassier. Of course, a reminder today as well that these events wouldn't be possible without our sponsors at Malwar Transport Incorporated. If you or someone you know are located in Canada and looking for a professional, efficient transportation brokerage service, I may have to catch up on the ad read in a moment's time there. Into the wall was Axel Cassier. That just suddenly interrupted the ad read. We thought we had it in the clear and narrow, but Axel Cassier is under attack. We'll have to pull that away for a moment's time, as we now see Diman Ivanov get the leg up on Axel Cassier. But into the wall as well goes Ivanov. So both of them pushing and shoving around the track now, pushing their machines to beyond what they can take. At the moment, it's Ivanov that comes out on top. He's up to 6th. Cassier down to 7th. That is a sudden change for them. Drama in the last 16 minutes. So let's just pull the ad read back up. Of course, from our sponsors at Malwar Transport. But it's gotten even worse for Diman Ivanov. So we can't get our ad read done on time. And our apologies to our sponsors at Malwar Transport Incorporated. We are trying to get the ad read in at this late stage of the race. We've been interrupted by what has been non-stop action in the middle sector. down the Conrod Straight. We can see that Axel Cassier does have straight line advantage on Ivanov. Very small incremental steps though, but it's the slow walk to a potential overtake on the horizon here. These two are going to be taking their cars all the way to the checkered flag here, battered and beaten by the looks of it, in this fight for 6th position, I should say. We're watching Cassier from 7th position. John Prine 8.1 seconds behind them in 8th. As it looks to be, Dimian Ivanov is slowly opening the taps on the Aston. He's got that heat in the tyres. It did take a brief scraper of the wall at Quarry Corner. He's managed to get that in. Carmelo Abate up to 11th. Tyler Vermack not too far away at all now. He's 6.5 seconds from the Porsche. We want to try and get on board with a driver who has been slowly making their way through the pack and has shared in a fantastic racing performance today. It's the car in 4th place, Robert Ogen, in the number 96. I would say this is a very easy pick of driver of the day. We saw Wadenator suggest it in chat there, and it's really not hard to see where that came from. Robert Ogen started last in this race and has surfed his way through the chaos to make a 4th position finish on the table ever so possible here. 14 minutes left to go. Let's get a look at our total running order here towards the end of this race. It's Ian Skeen that leads the fray with Aston Martin. Christian Lebay in 2nd. Jason Bush only half a second behind. Will be getting on board with this battle very, very shortly as they head down towards Skyline Hill. Robert Ogen up to 4th then with Lexus. Makes it a Lexus 3 and 4 at this time of recording. Francois Debont makes the back of the top 5 then with Ford in the number 4. Dimian Ivanov in 6th then with Aston Martin ahead of Axel Cassier. And John Prine in the top 10. He's in 8th position ahead of Ben Cheeseman and Scott Milbank, who rounds out the top 10. Carmelo Abate in 11th, slowly being hunted down by today's pole sitter, Tyler Vermack, who has been on a very long-winded revenge drive after an incident he suffered down at Reed and McPhillamy Park earlier in this race that set him far, far away from those leading positions. Wesley Kuiper also in that story as well, was leading this race confidently until a major incident saw everything go by the wayside. He lost out those positions to Skeen and to Vermack, but he's back out on track at the moment, slowly hunting his way back into this fight at the moment. Kevin Quain's in 14th, rounding out our top 15 is Kyle Jenkins. Marian Stoyanov's in the pit lane from 16th, and Hayden Proger in 17th position. So we're going to go on board our fight then for the podium positions. It's between Jason Bush and Christian Lebay. You can see right in front of them is Ben Cheeseman giving a little bit of free toe then to the Aston Martin. It was such a fast maneuver that our cameras could barely keep up with the pair of them. As a matter of fact, Cheeseman has accidentally found himself in the way of Jason Bush. Has to run very deep through turn 2, practically chastaining the walls as he makes his way up round Griffin's Bend. We're on board then with Christian Lebay, number 119 in 2nd. He's having to defend 2nd place from Jason Bush, who has had a phenomenal race alongside the Canadian. If we try and get a look, you can only just see the auxiliary lights hanging above the rear spoiler on the Aston, so onboard cameras are very little use to capture just how close these are to one another. The 113 is in trouble. Yellow flags are out. So 113 is back into the pit lane. John Prine is ahead of these two at the moment as they start to encounter traffic. Could this throw a wrench in the works then for Christian Lebay, as he needs as much of an open space as possible to keep himself away from Jason Bush, especially as we enter the longest of the straights on track here. The Conrod Straight, 1.9 kilometres to the next corner up. John Prine's in front of Lebay at the moment. Of course, his teammate at Malwar. Are they going to be looking to work together here? A little bit of free side draft for the V12 as it passes the V8 Vantage. 2 generations of Aston Martin racing machines on this stretch of tarmac. The Lexus still hunting him down with ruthless vigour down towards the chase. 10 minutes left to go, just under 11 before the checkered flag drops on this race, and it is looking to be a very dramatic last 10 minutes indeed. Lebay holding for 2nd at the moment. Jason Bush adamant for second in his own respect. It'll be his third second in a row in this championship. A consistent visitor to the podium. Just like Lebay last season, though, he's gone this far into the championship now, leading it, but without a race win. Could we find ourselves in a precarious new chapter of this retro car curse? Heading up the mountain straight, we can see just how close Bush is now to Lebay. It's 0.2 of a second between the Lexus and the Aston as we go up through turn 2. I'm going to try and get on board then with Jason Bush in the number 33. We're on board with the Lexus as we follow Christian Lebay up through the cuttings from the perspective of the number 33. Up round Reed, then to McPhillamy, past the wall of death of which so many drivers have made their appearance to. Round McPhillamy Park then, down towards Skyline. You can see how late he's able to put it on the brakes there on that V12 Vantage. Jason Bush is having to take a little bit of an earlier run on the brakes. Down through the S's and the Dipper, down towards turn 18 we go. It is an extraordinary last effort fight here between these two. All the meanwhile, Ian Skeen isn't too far up the road. He's held his nerve over the course of this race and has been taking things nice and easy whilst these two have been ripping each other asunder on their way down the Conrod Straight. Jason Bush now some distance away from Christian Lebay. The Aston Martin appears to have come out on top in this section of the track, showing its manoeuvrability off with that monstrous rear wing. It's got so much more downforce to play with over the Lexus. Not only that, the V12 Vantage, unlike its younger brother, the V8 Vantage, this is remarkably spry for a V12 powered GT race car. Very lightweight in nature. Staying on board here, this is now the perspective of Christian Lebay leading this fight for second. Looking to have to defend here from Jason Bush. Down the straights is where he's at his most vulnerable to the Lexus. The 5.4 litre V8 in that Lexus RCF. He's got so much more to give at the top end compared to the V12 in this Aston Martin. Both of them have great straight line speed, but it's just a little bit more, couple more miles an hour on that Lexus, and that's what keeps Jason Bush on those straights still very much so a part of this fight. Couple that with the fact that he is absolutely driving the doors off that Lexus in every corner. This is a grand battle we're seeing. With 8 minutes left to go, they've got about 4 laps here before the checkered flag, give or take a few. Lebay scrapes the wall there, the BP Ultimate signs at Quarry Corner. We're up now through Frog Hollow, turns 8 and 9, quickly on to Solman and McPhillamy. Now down to Skyline Hill, closer than we were on the last lap. Jason Bush still vigorously hunting down second off of Christian Lebay. These two giving it absolutely everything they can. 8 seconds up the road from them then is our race leader, Ian Skeen. Right now, all attention is focused on that fight for second between these two. Could this be the beginning of Lebay's push back into the championship lead? He's not too far away at all in the grand scheme of things. Yellow flags are out. The number 44 in trouble down at Frog Hollow. That's Scott Milbank in the BMW. Let's ran into some issues there. We're going to quickly cut away from this battle just to see what the state of affairs is for the number 44. Milbank is in trouble by the looks of it. We're going to try and find him here just before he makes his way down Skyline. Scott Milbank down to 9th. And on the horizon there is Vermac and Abate. So the opportunity for Vermac to push back into the top 10 has been laid bare before him as he's looking right now up the diffuser of the Porsche of Carmelo Abate. Anything is possible, I said before, when he puts his mind to it. And Vermac could be very well eyeing up a move back to the top 10 here. Milbank's got damage, swerving his way out of turn 18. The yellow flags are back out again for the number 113. Kyle Jenkins in trouble down the Skyline Hill drop. John Prine has a stop-go 30-second penalty. That's going to give Prodger a free position as they're fighting their way along. Right now, though, Abate and Vermac are side by side for 10th. We're watching here the potential battle of 9th, as well with Scott Milbank limping his way to the pit lane with these two properly stalking him out of the chase now. It may have just fallen out of the hands of Scott Milbank, but he's staying out on track. This is in the fight for 9th position then for Scott Milbank. He's now having to defend with ruthless abandon from Carmelo Abate and Tyler Vermaak, both hounding him for this position down through turn 1. Five minutes left to go. We want to try and get a look as well as our battle for 2nd position, but this one has just unfolded in front of our very eyes here. He's against the odds, but what can Scott Milbank do in his defence against Carmelo Abate in the Porsche? He goes towards the outside at turn 2. It's contact between Milbank and Abate. Vermaak goes through up into 9th. Unbelievable stuff then in front of our very eyes there at turn 2. You can see Abate was holding the inside line. And then swinging across. Milbank thought he had more space than he did. Swung across at turn 2. Vermaak goes flying through and is now up into 9th position. Right where he needs to be. Back into the top 10. A proper redemption drive by Tyler Vermaak. Milbank still fighting with Abate. Bitter resentment between both parties there. Abate looking to take it around the outside on Milbank before McPhillamy. Number 44 down to 11th. We're back on with our fight of 2nd. It's 0.7 of a second between Christian LeBay and Jason Bush. They're actually slowly gaining time to the race leader, Ian Skeen, but with only about 2 laps left to go. It may be too little too late in their efforts to catch the race leader. They're up from 8 seconds to about 6.6 at its best at the moment to the leading Aston Martin. It could be an Aston Martin 1-2 on the horizon here in the Sunday League. I do thoroughly await to see where the penny drops on this performance. We can see Kevin Quain holding short through the quarry curves on Christian LeBay and Jason Bush. Up through the quarry curves we go. A brush with the wall there by Bush by having to run the way long around Quain. Jason Bush won't be particularly happy there with Quain, but very little the 706 could have done. A very nasty place to be caught up by lapping cars. It has put a nice little buffer zone between Bush and LeBay on his run down towards turn 18. The Aston's able to breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief here, with about 1.5 more laps in the bookings for either of these two on their way out of turn 18. Now makes turn 19 on the start of the Conrod. Looking around the field, Robert Ogun under siege then for 4th by Francois de Bont. The battle of the heavyweights, Ford versus Lexus, inside the top 5. Let's see where things end up in the fight here for Ogun. He has been on a legendary drive today from last all the way up into the top 5. Can he cement a 4th place finish with Lexus going up against Francois de Bont? Let's see where the penny drops. Out of turn 2, de Bont's all over the back end of Ogun, looking to try and make it side by side, but a lunge towards the inside. Not impossible, but incredibly dangerous at the cuttings. Better intuition there by de Bont. He's not trying for a move that he can't successfully land, especially on a machine as grand as the Lexus RCF. Not a lot of wiggle room here. It's like manoeuvring 2 cruise ships into the eye of a needle. Down through McPhillamy we go towards Skyline Hill. It's looking very, very close between de Bont and Ogun. Greater intensity than what we saw in Bush v LeBay. Ogun collides with the wall though. It's the end of that battle for 4th. 1 temporary lapse in judgment brings about the end of Ogun's race. And that is one of the most brutal parts about Bathurst as a track there. 2 minutes left to go. 1 tiny slip over the curb there. And it's all over for the number 96. That has got to be a gut-wrenching feeling, but it will be a free position for Tyler Vermaak unless Robert Ogun's team can miraculously get that 96 back on track in the next minute. It'll be a free position on the horizon for Tyler Vermaak in the Ford Mustang, who has shared in a phenomenal comeback drive. Really, we are hoping to see Robert Ogun make his way back onto the track. Otherwise, we'll have to find a different driver to give driver of the day to. Yellow flags are out for turn 18 and for turn 11. The 114 ran into some trouble. That's Ben Cheeseman facing what appears to be the wrong way through the S's. There goes and that was the triple two. That's Hayden Prodger and the Ferrari. Cheeseman's in a very, very precarious spot. This is really not where he wants to be. The number 66 of Marian Stoyanov is not too far away, but fortunately he's back going and into green flag conditions there just before the 66 arrives. The 113 in front of him, Kyle Jenkins, has ran into trouble as well around turn 19. The leader is on the final lap now. It's utter bedlam on the final lap here in Bathurst. Jenkins is back into the pits then. We're going to try and get on board with Ian Skeen. And furthermore, we want to see what the state of affairs is behind him. With Jason Bush now catching up Christian LeBay. That time is dwindling and dwindling fast. These two could be taking it all the way to the checkered flag here in that fight for second. Christian LeBay has had a phenomenal drive today to put himself up in the championship runnings. Jason Bush has done brilliantly to stick around the podium positions, but try as he may, I think LeBay may have just got him dead to rights on this lap. But the story of the day is that of Ian Skeen, a remarkable drive from the second row, leading this race through thick and through thin after great drama between Kuiper and Vermaak. We want to see, though, where the penny drops, and with the timer now having served its purpose, we'll be getting ready to bring out the checkered flags very, very shortly, running all the way down towards McPhillamy for the last time. Then still in that fight for second, it's LeBay v Bush. Where does it drop between the pair of them here? Absolutely nothing between them down towards the line. We're going to try and get on board with all three of our leading cars here in the final act of round 3 of this championship. It has been a fantastic ending to a Sunday League race. What a way to end the week of racing today. We'll try and get on board then. Ian Skeen leads the fray with Aston Martin. We are looking at the precipice of an Aston Martin 1-2. In what has been a grand race, full of theatrics, full of drama, full of controversy. But emerging from the wreckage of all of that said and done is the 696, the Aston Martin of Ian Skeen, giving Aston Martin their first win since Nürburgring last season. Ian Skeen is a Sunday League race winner here in Bathurst. What a drive by the Brit. Getting down to the line. Where does the penny drop in the fight between LeBay and Bush? Round turn 23. It could even be a drag race to the line, but it's LeBay who comes out on top in the fight for second. Bush third, De Bont fourth by the looks of it, but is a long, long way from home here, just making his way through Frog Hollow and Quarry. Crossing the line as well, Wesley Kuiper finishes in 11th, Kevin Quain in 12th. Now having finished the race as well is Hayden Prodger, finishing in the top 15 after a very mixed bag race. He'll be happy to take home more points today. Ben Cheeseman makes it to the line, even with damage there, inside the top 10. A grand finish by the 114. Next across the line there was, I believe that was Marian Stoyanov in the number 66. He'll take home 16th position in this race. Francois De Bont a long way from home still. He's making his way down the back straight here at the Conrod. Down towards the chase. They've still got a few more corners left in it. Diman Ivanov will be happy for a top 5 finish with Aston Martin. 3 Astons inside the top 5. And Aston Martin 1 and 2 here in Bathurst. I never thought I'd see the day where I get to tell you that Aston Martin have claimed a 1-2 here on ACC. Down but never out. The glorious winged firm from Warwickshire. Ian Skeen will share in what has been a spectacular drive to the front. His first win in Sunday League history, and Aston Martin's second ever since last season, where Hayden Puttock took the gold in Nürburgring at the season finale. Christian LeBay on one of his highest finishes in Sunday League history. Second place ahead of the current championship leader Jason Bush on his 3rd consecutive podium. Francois De Bont then crosses the line 4th, Diman Ivanov 5th, Axel Cassier on a great drive today through thick and thin for 6th position. Cheeseman of course 7th, Vermaak on a great comeback with the fastest lap makes 8th. Carmelo Abate into the top 10, a great drive by him in the number 26 makes 9th. Scott Milbank through damages still makes his way to the top 10 at the end of this race. What a way to end the week then, ladies and gents, with a fantastic race here at Bathurst. Back-to-back Great races from this one here. The 696 has stolen the show, and that battle as well right behind him to cement Aston Martin's first ever 1-2. You couldn't ask for a better weekend here on NLRL. What a fantastic drive by all drivers. Well done to our drivers on the podium. And very well done to Ian Skeen on his first ever race win in Sunday League history. That has really got to stand for something there. That's all from us here on TRTN. What an end to the weekend then. If you're joining us next, we'll be going to Donington Park on Wednesday for the Super Sprint round of VSR Phoenix Season 7. Looking on the calendar for the Sunday League, our next round takes us to Kyalami. So do look forward to that. That's all from us though for now. Have a wonderful rest of your evening and take care. Good night.